you're here, right? The blockchain socialist.
Yes. So I use this pseudonym just because I also work full time, and of course they don't really know about stuff that I do. Yeah, the Blockchain Socialist is a platform that I made. It's a podcast and blog that explores looking at distributed ledger technologies like blockchain and its intersection with left-wing politics. So you know, being working in that space as well, there aren't so many people who are on the left. You might know, but yes, I have presentation, so I'll screen. But just to give maybe a little bit more background on the project I've been pursuing for the past year and a half or so. Basically, I started my platform after a long time being interested in the blockchain world and having worked in it for quite some time. And I was a bit frustrated, I guess, with the lack of interest by people on the left. And so out of that, I created the platform to sort of give my own opinions on it and have my own takes, and publishing mostly in articles and blogs. And then I've transitioned mostly to podcasts where I interview a lot of the people actually that have spoken at Money Lab earlier today, but just to discuss and have an open discussion with people about blockchain and the projects that maybe they're working on and how that intersects with left-wing. But so out of that, I created sort of a community. So I started a subreddit and as well as a Discord called the Crypto Leftists. So people who are on the left and interested in that type of world. And out of that sort of like grassroots movement of trying to get people together, I came up with a couple of others who are developers in the blockchain space and developers in general. And we came up with sort of a project in mind on how we can sort of go about introducing left-wing ideas into the blockchain space. So we're inspired by a bit of the BreadTube movement. If you don't know the BreadTube, BreadTube is sort of like a loosely associated organization of YouTubers who work against the sort of right-wing content on YouTube. So they produce left-wing content, whereas YouTube sort of naturally promotes right-wing content a lot of the time. And so we were inspired by that and to sort of push back against the right-wing narrative within the blockchain space and sort of counter that. With that, we came up with the Breadchain project, we titled. So what is Breadchain? Breadchain is a cooperative of blockchain projects or DLT projects, not necessarily blockchain, who adhere to specific principles that we've so far defined. That being working for economic democracy, building structures for mutual aid, practicing transparent governments, and building dual power. Those are sort of like guiding principles that help us align with projects that would like to be a part of the Breadchain network. And focusing, of course, on finding ways to manage resources that are held in common, as opposed to what are in traditional DAO structures where a lot of the resource allocation is purely based on free market mechanisms. And so to describe, I guess, quickly the parts of the Breadchain ecosystem that we would like to build out, it would include people who are helping fund the actual projects themselves, people who are helping with operating the entire infrastructure and facilitating the progress of the project. The type of guiding council is really just the representatives of each project that's part of the network that owns the legal cooperative structure. And as well, we're looking into possibly having some sort of expert network or network of people who we think have a lot to say and can help projects move along. But I want to, instead of try and detail out every little thing about it, because we haven't actually gotten that far, is to focus specifically on funding and how we are sort of thinking about funding and where specifically crypto could be interesting for funding of left-wing projects. But I have this table of sort of how we can divide up the way we think about funding. We think about funding as a type of economic expression, and there are sort of 3 different ways we've outlined that could allow someone to express that they support a project. First is through direct giving. And so you can do this through either fiat or crypto quite easily. Second one being patronage, which can easily be done through fiat currencies through already existing platforms like Open Cooperative, Patreon, etc. Something that's not really possible through cryptocurrencies yet. And then the third type of economic expression we have is staking. So that's something that isn't exactly possible through fiat currencies, because that really is just requiring of sort of joint investments, which is not something that's desirable at the moment. However, through crypto is something that would be very interesting and provide a very new type of economic expression for funding projects, which I'll get into in a bit later. But so far, our project, or the network itself, has 2 projects. One of them is called the Basis Project by one of the guys who helped start and fund, or helped start Breadchain. But basically, it's an attempt at creating a post-capitalist productive network. So it's trying to take advantage of distributed ledger technologies, not necessarily blockchain. The technological stack has not been defined yet, but for allowing production to be done and trade to be done without exactly needing to generate a profit through this network. And then the second project, what we call the Breadchain crowd staking protocol. So this is basically the staking idea that I had spoken about earlier. And basically, this is sort of how we would sort of design or like experiment with staking as a way of funding projects within Breadchain. So a supporter would be called a crowd staker. They could take something like a stablecoin called DAI, in which they could place that DAI into a smart contract. That smart contract would then send that DAI to a liquidity pool on Compound. So a liquidity pool is essentially it's basically a pool of funds in which the funds come from people who lend, and then traders take that and then they have to pay interest on it. But within a liquidity pool, you have a pretty safe and assured interest rate. And so basically the smart contract would collect the interest of what is being generated by the liquidity pool. And the interest would be able to be taken by the Breadchain multi-signature wallet, or something that is owned by the Breadchain network itself. And the crowd staker, or the funder, would receive in collateral what we call yeast tokens, because yeast allows bread to rise, and therefore it allows the Breadchain ecosystem to rise. And in that way, as a crowd staker, you can give money to a project, which can then make money off of that. But you can also receive all of your money back. If later you decide you don't want to support a project anymore, you can reverse, you can take back all of the money that you've given for that project. So in a way, it's not the same as direct giving, because you're not letting go of your money, but you are still able to get it.
This is just a very brief reminder that we have only 10 minutes left. So
sure, yeah, almost done.
Okay, fantastic.
This is just to say that we're still quite early in the process, and we have some very basic ideas on how we want everything, how we would expect things to work. But it's really meant, wanted to present this because we want to be open to feedback, and we want to hear from others what they think, and get people with more expertise than us to provide help with the things that we need help with. So there's a lot of things that still need to be done. For example, creation of a Breadchain public forum, the legal incorporation of the cooperative, deployment of the various contracts, et cetera, governance structures. So these are all things that we want to do in conjunction with a community. And so we have a community sort of already existing around the crypto leftist community. However, I wanted to present, sort of put it up to the Money Lab community as well. And so these are just some of the maybe important links. If you want to keep up, I can share these in the chat.
That would be amazing.
But
yeah, that would be amazing if you could share these in the chat, and maybe also on the Discord server. That would be really great.
Sure.
Thank you so much. I'm always happy when I see projects that combine the cooperative governance with blockchain, because I think there's a lot where both fields can learn from each other.
Yeah,